Morning, folks. Brian here, Geomagnetic and Earth Watch. Morning, as in just after midnight, Saturday, November 5, 2023. I want to share with you some of my closing thoughts before I try and finish my day. I want to talk to you about timelines and bringing in together all the pieces of the puzzle. They've been scattered here and there, but they're all coming in now. And everything is conjoining together on a closing final timeline, in my opinion. Different timelines, the timelines of the World Economic Forum, the timeline of the World Health Organization, and the timeline of, and I had to be cryptic, I've already been targeted. I do not want to trigger any algorithms that's going to give me any more attention. The timeline of the Beagle B report. The Beagle dog. Substitute the letter B for letter D, and you'll know what I'm talking about. The timeline of revelation and the Planet X system now within our solar system and everything that's happening on our planet. So let's start with the first piece of the puzzle. The discovery of the ninth planet, or what NASA called Planet X system, which was made public in December and January 1983 in the Washington Post and New York Times. You can still find that information on the internet. So back then, NASA appointed Mr. Robert S. Harrington from the U.S. Naval Observatory. They appointed him to locate and track the Planet X system, which was first discovered because of the perturbations of the orbits of Neptune and Uranus. Both those planets were being pulled down to their southern regions. Something was pulling them down. And that's how they suspected that there was something out there, something much larger. A massive planet, or a brown dwarf star, was pulling on the outer planets. The infrared astronomical satellite did capture the image of the Planet X. There was one more mainstream news article in the U.S. News and World Report on September 10, 1984. Then silence fell upon the subject of the discovery of the Planet X. I guess the government realized, oh, we shouldn't have said that, man. We got to come up with a cover story. When they realized the implications, political, geopolitical, societal, economic, great civil unrest. Mr. Harrington was about to make his findings public. However, he mysteriously died from a rapid onset of throat cancer, suspiciously, within days. It is also believed that the probes, Pioneer 10, launched in March 2, 1972, and the subsequent Pioneer 11 the following April 1973, was launched to provide a triangulation to better pinpoint its location and orbital approach. So they have the location through the infrared astronomical telescope satellite, So they needed the triangulation, hence the reason for the launching of the Pioneer 11, Pioneer 10 and Pioneer 11 space probes. But when the government realized the destructive effects of a much larger celestial body on our planet. They had to come up with a cover story to explain the catastrophic events to be expected. So they came up with a man-made global warming narrative, and they appointed Al Gore and John Kerry to head up that narrative. I laugh at the people who make fun of Al Gore and John Kerry, saying they don't know what they're talking about. They know exactly what they are talking about. Exactly. And they've been pushing this narrative for what, 40 years now, approximately? Exactly, 40 years now. So the electromagnetic and gravitational effects on our planet by a larger celestial body, which is also as described in scriptures, Matthew 24, Luke 21. Indirectly, others, Acts 2, verse 19. The dramatic increase in earthquakes and volcanic eruptions, destructive weather events, devastating winds, coastal inundations, which we are only just beginning to experience now. They also realized, I'm assuming, that these earth changes will drastically reduce our ability to grow enough food for the population and water. The destructive weather events and the ultraviolet sea level radiation, which is now reaching the Earth's surface, which is supposed to be protected by our ozone layer. However, because of the geomagnetic excursion, the pull on the outer core from the largest celestial body, which is causing the geomagnetic excursion and the destabilization and weakening of our protective magnetosphere, it is the cosmic radiation, the secondary showering particles, which breaks down the ozone layer, which allows the ultraviolet radiation to reach us. I've already talked about the effects of ultraviolet radiation on not just the humans, but plant DNA, as well as causing droughts, etc. And I'm going to add in my own supposition, my own theory. So what is not my theory is the electromagnetic pull in the outer core of our planet heating up. And as I often demonstrate to you, up through the mantle plumes are anchored to the outer core of our planet where a magnetic field is generated from. It's expanding, it's getting hotter. That hotter magma is coming up the mantle plumes to the mantle plume head, which is on the underside of the lithosphere in which the crust sits upon, and which we walk upon in our oceans, causing what's called lithospheric melting, thinning of the crust, depletion of the natural resources of oil and natural gas, and the waters below our feet. The United Nations is true in their words when they say such things as, we have reached a boiling point. He is right. He is also right when he said earlier this year that we will be losing half of the world's lakes, waters. And such as I have shown you on all my heat anomaly reports. Especially in the last month of October twice. Once on October 12th, the waters north of Australia, Timor Sea, into Indonesia, Banda Sea, Flores Sea, Java Sea, Molucca Sea. My God, 400 individual heat detections. And then 2 weeks later, another at least 300. So let's bring into the discussion this evening the World Economic Forum, the World Health Organization, and the beagle dog. Prediction for a substantial reduction in the global population by 2025. The Beagle Dog Organization is a renowned global military intelligence and consulting firm who reports to the United States government, who provides forecasting and data analysis. In 2014, the Beagle Dog forecasted a reduction in the United States population by 2/3, down to 100 million, as well as a reduction in other NATO countries, Canada, Australia, United Kingdom, Germany, etc. In Canada, I believe it was between 25 and 29%. However, in April 2021, this organization had to remove that information from the website. What happened in April 2021? Excuse me. I'm going to suggest something. It's not a predictive report. Targeted hit list. In May of 2024, in 6 more months, the World Health Organization, when accepted by the member state countries, almost all of them will, hand over ultimate authority and control, sole ultimate authority and control over to the World Health Organization with respect to our health and other restrictions, to include to decide the next pandemic, endemic, mandatory lockdowns, mandatory this, and so far as to say what we can and cannot say on social media. Bill Gates did state that the next pandemic will be by 2025, and it will be 10 times worse than the last pandemic. Excuse me. The World Economic Forum has stated that by 2025, there will be a global cyber attack. Loss of the internet, so we cannot communicate with each other and find out what the hell is going on our planet. Now, from gathering a whole bunch of information on the Planet X system from different sources, the Planet X system has already entered into our solar system and has started to affect our planets, such as Mars, for example. All of a sudden, increased volcanism and now earthquakes in Mars. Just one example. And from these reports, we'll begin to see the manifestation as soon as the end of this year or going into 2024. So I'm going to back up a step. I'm going to back up to Mr. Bill Gates. 2 or 3 years ago, he stated publicly that he was going to fund a scheme to completely envelop our planet in chemtrails in an effort to cool the planet down from the global warming. See, they tell us what they're going to do. They're just not going to give you the real reason. The real reason is to provide an envelope so we can't see the manifestation of but they still need to substantially reduce the world's population before the global population realizes the truth. That's what all these agendas were about, Agenda 21, Agenda 2030. However, they realized that maybe Planet X system is a little bit closer or faster than they anticipated. Don't fall for the Agenda 2030 timeline, Agenda 2034, Agenda 2050. That just gives you a false sense of security timing. I've been saying for long over a year, 2025. They're saying 2025. By 2025. So now I want to introduce to you Mr. John Moore, the Liberty Man. At least one of you in my group is a friend of his. Mr. John Moore is a former Vietnam veteran, Green Beret, Special Forces, PSYOPs, Middle East intelligence, and after that, a retired homicide detective. So a man of that stature still maintains his connections with the intelligence community. In one of his articles written in 2008, listen carefully, and he also does a lot of reporting on the Planet X system. In this article in 2008, he stated, "It is far easier to impose and maintain martial law if the population is already in lockdown." And as he said back then, oh, from a pandemic? Are you seeing all those pieces of the puzzle coming together now? Are you beginning to see the final picture? Control, corral us, knock us off, as many as they can, hastily, very quickly. The Beagle Dog Report by 2025. The World Health Organization by 2024. The World Economic Forum by 2025. The United States Air Force General saying war with China by 2025. Then we look at the current world events. I have been adamant. The Ukraine situation is one massive orchestrated distraction. People, give your head a straight shake. Bang on the wall a few times. Wake up. Red lines have been drawn so many times and each side keeps on dropping over the other side. There should have been nuclear exchanges so many times. Come on, wake up. And finally, I want to end this talk. How everything fits into the tribulation timeline. And people, in my opinion, it hasn't started yet. And stop this nonsense. I read comments in other people's posts. Oh, it started in 2019. Where's the great destructive earthquakes? Where's the famines? Where's the pestilence? Where's the Antichrist? The Antichrist emerges from the sea of people during the second 42 months of the tribulation period. He ain't here yet. But let's talk about him. Let's talk about his spirit. The greatest battle is yet to be fought. will not be by nuclear annihilation. I think, yes, there'll be some use. But the greatest battle will be for your mind, and a spiritual battle. We are already in a war amongst ourselves, including within the family units, and the enemy is trying to breach the beachhead into our families, our marriages, our communities. And he is succeeding. I think he is the one who is responsible for starting the Middle East conflict. I think his spirit has infiltrated Israel. And speaking of the Middle East situation, let's speak about, now let's stay with the a-hole, Satan. And he's going to be out there trying to destroy our faith and our unity. The battlefield of the mind is where the destiny of men and nations is determined. It's not by tanks, it's not by ships, it's not by planes, it's not by nuclear warheads. Yes, it's going to involve all those things, but ultimately, you know what I'm talking about. So what I say is, give him an attitude. Don't show the bastard any weakness. Show him your spiritual strength. Because he can't get inside if you don't let him. When he tries, give him an attitude. Middle East. That too is all scripted. It's all orchestrated. It's all pre-planned. It's a lot bigger than I think a lot of people think. It's not about Hamas in Israel. Hamas has a bunch of dicky little homemade, unguided, low-yield rockets. Yeah, they had a lot. The purpose was to try and deplete the munitions from the Israeli Iron Dome system. To deplete it for Hezbollah, who has 150,000 much larger, sophisticated, guided missiles. 150,000. And the Houthis in Yemen? A test. A test the United States resolve and the capability of the United States Navy to intercept those few missiles and drones that Yemen launched. It's all part of a larger plan. As influenced by the a-hole AC. Like I said, he doesn't emerge from the sea of people, until the second half of the tribulation. Then he will gather in nations of 10 to be marching into Jerusalem. Any hints of the nations of 10, who they're going to be? Or are they now starting to band together and put aside their differences? The Shia and the Sunni? We got to put aside our differences because we now have a common goal, the elimination of Israel, such as stated in the Bible. If not by the end of this year, 2023, going into 2024, it is going to get nasty by a whole bunch of different definitions. The Middle East, the catastrophic destructive earthquakes, the volcanic eruptions, the devastating wind events, the storms. Is the coast of England and the surrounding areas not getting a little bit more than they usually get? What about that hurricane off the coast of Acapulco, which all of a sudden, just like that, developed into a Category 5 hurricane? What about the massive floods in Libya that took out at least 20,000 people? The earthquakes in Turkey, Morocco, Afghanistan, Nepal. Whole lot of things to prepare for. But don't let the asshole in. Shut the door in his face. And don't get caught in his beast system. And develop an attitude. Anyway, I think that's about it for now. Be prepared for a loss of some of our liberties and freedoms. Access to information, the internet. They still have to reduce the population big time and get the rest under control. And that's what all these plans, these agendas, that's what it's all about. Because they know about the Planet X system coming in. Some of you probably say, well, that's hogwash. That's fine. You don't have to believe it. Just pay attention to the earth changes. Pay attention to the rising heat. The return of more devastating wildfires next spring. And our turn in North America for our earthquakes and volcanic eruptions, or loss of our food and water. That's it. Okay, time for bed now. Ta-ta.